Ahoy from New York Harbor. I'm Mary O'Dowd. Welcome aboard Classic Boat. This week on Classic Boat, we take you to Clayton, New York for America's oldest antique boat show. We'll take you for a thrilling ride on a vintage hydroplane race boat. In Ontario, Canada, we'll check out a classic cruiser. We'll bring you to New York City and the South Street Seaport. And we'll go on board the Addiction, a rare Shepherd runabout. Located near the eastern end of Lake Ontario, about halfway between Toronto and Montreal, Clayton is nestled in the scenic Thousand Islands region of upstate New York, where it is the yearly home of the prestigious Antique Boat Show. There is a National Center for Antique and Classic Boating. It is here in Clayton, New York. Located on the St. Lawrence River, this quaint little town is the home of the Antique Boat Museum, where they are hosting the 32nd Annual Antique Boat Show. Vintage vessels from all around the U.S. and Canada have gathered here. Elegant launches, cruisers, even some antique race boats. There's a nautical auction, a flea market, a river cruise, a rock concert, lots of other stuff you're going to want to see, and we'll have a chat with event organizer Sherry Steblin. Well, if you've got a classic boat, you know sometimes it's very difficult to find parts for repairs or restorations. We're over here at the Nautical Flea Market now talking with Bob Schofield. Bob, what are some of the parts that you have here for sale?
We have some outboards. We have outboard related items, oil jars, oil cans, miscellaneous hardware, all those little hard to find things because you can't go to the dealer and get them anymore. We have some very specialized outboard and inboard and classic power and sailboat items that we have accumulated from searching through many, many warehouses, from Labrador all the way down to the Keys.
Over at another tent here in Clayton, New York, Bud Brackett is telling us about some of the marine hardware he's got for sale. Bud, what are these insignia that we see here?
These are original Chris Craft script. There are 3 different sizes that are designed for different length boats, and we also make them for Hackercraft and also some other boats.
Behind us, I noticed some wooden poles. Tell me about them.
Those are the stern poles. They come in about 4 different sizes. They're for different length boats. Again, they're wired completely for the stern pole lights and also for the sockets in the base.
Okay, what are we doing here?
We're selling raffle tickets for the Antique Boat Museum.
Excellent. Where does that money go towards?
Goes towards the building of the next one and the Antique Boat Museum.
Hey, I'm not on, really?
Yeah, you're on.
You're from Washington Courthouse,
No, I'm not.
Ohio.
Hey, come here. What's your name?
Keith,
Keith what?
Roger.
And what are you doing here?
Here just for the boat show.
Yeah? You like boats?
Yeah.
What kind of boats you like?
Chris Craft and old-fashioned ones.
Excellent.
Yep.
Thanks a lot.
Welcome.
with us today in Clayton, New York, and he's brought along Dancing Bear. Kurt, I understand Dancing Bear has quite a reputation for winning trophies.
Well, it's had a very good race history. Actually, I designed and built the boat myself back in '64 and '5, and I started racing in January of 1966 in the F-Service runabout class under APBA rules. And actually, that first year of racing, the first race was the only race that didn't win. I had some mechanical trouble. But it went on to second race. I set a new competition record, and it won all the rest of the races that year, and of course was High Point winner that year. And I raced it through 1972, and it was what we call US 1 or High Point winner each time. I also set the straightaway record for the class. The previous record was 82.2, and I moved it up to 94.6.
Wow.
And actually the class was retired at the end of '72, so the records will stand for Dancing Bear. I was able to move the competition record from 67.7 in 1966 to finally up to 78.787. So, and of course that record will stand too. Some of the interesting things about the boat is it's all cold molded, what we call plywood construction. It's stressed fore and aft instead of having frames, which has worked out well because the boat has survived other ownership and really poor care. I sold the boat in '74, and I found it about 5 or 6 years ago, and the deck was all rotten, but basically the hull was still intact. And I used good materials at the time, so that paid off. And when we got the boat back, my son helped me restore it, and we wanted to put it back as much as we could in its original racing form. It has a Chrysler 392 Hemi engine, which is in the 57, 58 New Yorker and Imperial cars, also the 300. And it has 6 two-barrel carburetors. These carburetors are Ford carburetors that worked out for us hot rodders way back then. Has what's known as an Edelbrock cross ram manifold. The engine is exactly the way it was raced. Those manifolds, those carburetors, those flame arresters, scintilla magneto, ignition. The difference between the boat right now and when I was racing is I installed a transmission so I can take people for rides. And if you look here, there's a hatch that can be taken out, and there's a forward cockpit if I want to take some other people. But the boat's worked out very well, and it's one of the favorite boats that people like to take rides in.
I can imagine.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's just the spirit of competition and the challenge. My family had a 19-foot Chris Craft runabout that was a pretty good performer. In fact, there's a couple of those boats here at the show, and that's how my brother and I got started racing. And those were the hot ticket back in the 50s and 40s and 50s, and then somebody had a faster boat, so I said, well, we'll put a Chrysler Hemi in our Chris Craft, and then it kept evolving, and it's a great sport, and there's a lot of good people in it, and I've enjoyed it very much. And it seems to be one of the favorites for the people at the show that like to go for a ride. In fact, I'll take you for a ride if you like.
Okay, I'll take your one.
All right.
Fabulous.
I've enjoyed it. Good luck.
What do you think it's your birthday? Where am I? 80, right here. You're right here in Clayton. 80. 80 right over there. You want to give me 80 right over there? You want to give me 80 right over there, sir? 80. $80. 90. 90 right over there, and 100 right over there, sir, and 100. And 100. Touch it and feel it one more time, sir. You'll like that boat. And 100 and 100 and 100. What's your number over there?
Auction, Auction, Auction is the name of the game here in Clayton, New York at the Old Boats, Old Friends show, and John Yor is going to tell us all about it.
Well, we hold this once a year, in the first week in August, and boat owners and members of the Antique Classic Boat Society will bring their boats here to be auctioned off at the same time. They're trying to look for sleepers, a classic boat or a rare boat that they can restore. And it's kind of the mecca of antique boat trading back and forth and kind of an open forum.
It's really a hotbed of activity going on there. How many boats are here?
Absolutely. There's so far is listed about 75, but the actual count we probably won't know to the end of the day. There's somewhere between 75 and 100. And we have people that will come here from all over the country.
Lots of good bargains out there?
Well, I got here a little bit late. There's a couple that I saw that went a little bit higher than I thought, but then there was one that he just sold, which was a Mullins. A friend of mine bought one that was in much worse condition and paid several $100s more for it.
All right. Can you talk like that guy back there?
No, I can't do that. I can't roll all of those numbers and get those high dollars that Bresnik does.
Okay, we're going to check out some of the activity. Thanks for chatting with us.
Thank you.
With so many classic boats to choose from, Chief Judge John Howard said it wasn't always easy to pick a winner. John, what is the philosophy behind the judging process here at the Antique Boat Show?
Well, this show uses the ACBS judging rules, which are common through most of the chapters and shows in North America. And the basic philosophy is that a boat is judged to compare it to how it was when it left the original factory or builder. If it's restored to the condition that it was in and it appears to be the same as it did when it was first built, then that's a 100-point boat. All boats start out at 100 points. And for every deviation from originality or flaw in workmanship or condition, points are deducted. So the philosophy is to try to have a boat that's the same as it was when it was originally built.
What are some of the different criteria or the different categories in the judging process?
Well, there's 5 for the power boats. We'll talk about those first. There's 5 categories. Exterior condition, which is the planking of the decks and the hull, the seams, the joinery work and the construction of the hull and the deck. That's the first category. Second category is the interior joinery, construction, upholstery, finishes of the interior of the boat. Another is the varnish and paint, or the finishing of all the materials, primarily varnish and paint in the boats that we deal with. The fourth is the hardware, instruments, all the chrome or brass decorations and trim pieces and functional pieces on the boat, on the deck, on the hull, on the inside. And then the last in a power boat is the engine. And again, in all cases, we're striving for originality or a perfect duplicate of the original if the original is no longer available.
Well, we look forward to following some of the judges in action. John, thanks for talking with us.
Thank you.
There was plenty of time to relax with friends ashore, but the real action was out on the water. You know, folks, this boat show is not over even yet. It's Sunday afternoon, and we are out here on the water for the Classic Boat Parade. We've got Penyans, Hackers, Chris Crafts, Garwoods, lots of others. All of Clayton Town is turned out here along the shore, and half of the rest of the country. We'll take you now to some of the action out on the water.
There's a winning top boat here from, let me see, Tuscaloosa, New Jersey.
Team Arrow, owned by Barn Becker. This award is presented as sponsored by Schweitz.
Right behind us now, the awards presentation is going on. They've got awards for everything, from best runabout, best utility, even best costume. It's really a fantastic way to reward all of the hard work that's been put into this show. And you know, I gotta tell you, we've been here for 3 days, and it's easy to see why Clayton, New York sets the standard for the rest of the country. We hope you've enjoyed the show, and we hope to see you here next year. Martin Luce is with us today in Westport, Ontario, Canada, and he has brought along Anastasia too. Martin, what kind of boat is Anastasia?
Well, she's what Chris Craft advertised as a sedan cruiser. And really, she gives you the best of both two worlds, the runabout and the cruiser. It's really a small cruiser, which is, if you like, an overgrown runabout.
Well, I'd like to go on board and have a closer look at her.
Sure, come aboard.
The Anastasia is really in beautiful condition. Tell me how long you've had the boat.
Well, we've had the boat for 4 years now. We acquired it in the United States in a small place, Sunset Bay, which is just to the west of Buffalo on Lake Erie. We saw it advertised in the Wooden Boat magazine, and after a phone call or two decided to go down and take a look at it. And we liked what we saw. The boat was in excellent condition. It in fact had spent the previous 20 years of its life in covered storage, never been used for 20 years. So the hull of the boat and all the woodwork was in the condition almost that it left the factory in 1955.
Since it is an older boat, what about the engine? Any trouble with that?
No, she has twin engines. They're KL, the Chris Craft KL engine, and 105 horsepower each. They're six-cylinder flathead gasoline engines. The only thing I had to do when I bought the boat was to just do a valve job on the engines. The compression was quite low. But the engines are running beautifully at the moment, actually, and when we get the boat out and give her the throttle, she's got a really good turn of speed. As I say, it's just like having a runabout, and the fun of a runabout, but with a cruiser.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh, it is. Yes, it is, very much.
Looking forward, tell me about what else is on the boat.
Well, the boat is divided into two sections. Half the boat is a cabin, and the other half is the cockpit. So you have a lot of space for the size of the boat in the cockpit. You can sit out, as you can see the arrangement here, and the cabin has enough space. Yesterday we had a very stormy day on the lake. It rained all day, thunder and lightning, but we didn't feel closed up at all in the cabin, and we slept on the boat last night. It has 3 berths, it has a small head, and it has a small galley with us. We keep a little stove there and a sink. So you can live aboard for a week or two, and so long as you can get ashore for a shower now and again, it's fine.
Are you a member of any classic boat society?
Yes, I'm a member of the Manatic Antique and Classic Boat Club, which is one of the chapters of the Antique and Classic Boat Society of North America. And we've belonged to the club since we bought the boat. She's been in most of the previous shows since we've had her, and in fact has won the Best Classic Cruiser Award 2 of the last 3 years.
Martin, why do you think it is important to belong to this type of club and to be at events like this one?
Well, belonging to the club puts you in touch with a network of people who have similar interests. Quite often it may be difficult to find where you buy a particular parts or screws or stains or varnishes that you need to preserve a boat like this. So belonging to a network such as the Antique and Classic Boats Society keeps you in touch with people and manufacturers of special parts, etc. And it also ties you to a network of people who love to be on the water in wooden boats. And I think the camaraderie you get from that and the friendships we've made has been people we'll have friends all our lives. It's a group of people who enjoy looking after wooden boats as much as they enjoy using them, and they're not just showpieces. We use this boat extensively in the summer. We have a moor close to our house. We live on the river in a little village called Manatic on the Rideau River. So we have the water at our front door, if you like, and so we tend to use the boat in the evenings, take off for supper. So it's a working boat.
Well, that's what she was made for.
That's right, exactly. They're there to be enjoyed, not to be just polished up and put away.
Martin, thanks very much for showing us around Anastasia too.
You're welcome.
Back at the Antique Boat Show, we talked with event organizer Sherry Steblin. Sherry, tell me a little bit about the history of this event.
This is our 32nd annual Antique Boat Show and Auction. So it has been going on for 32 years. The auction's been going on for about the last 20 years, and it started just a group of men that got together because they all had boats here on the river, and people decided they wanted to bring them together and show them. So it started out very small, and each year has gotten larger, from a one-day event to now we're into about a 4-day event for this. And with 76 boats in the water this year, hoping for more today. They keep coming through the doors, and then all the land displays, the small crafts, and the outboards. We have everything from a 55-foot cruiser, and I have quite a few cruisers. They take up about 1,000 feet of my docks. Then we have utilities, outboard boat motors, runabouts over 22 foot, runabouts under 22 foot, reproductions, which are the boats made today to look like the old ones. Then I have the St. Lawrence sailing skiffs and the St. Lawrence rowing skiffs. Adirondack guide boats, they're all here.
What are some of the activities that are going on here this weekend?
Well, actually we started yesterday. We had a river cruise yesterday for the exhibitors that come in a day early, and they all get together in their boats or give rides to people who don't want to take their boats out into strange waters. They headed off for the day. Today we're going to have speakers forums all day. The marketplace and flea market is open across the street and bustling. And this afternoon the judges will come in. We'll have the judging forum, so everybody who's in the show knows just what the judges are looking for on their boats. Then we have a large dinner tonight, catered dinner for anybody who wants to participate in that. Saturday starts out, again, everything's open, marketplace and flea market. The judges start their judging at 8 o'clock in the morning, so it's pretty tense for everybody from 8 to 1 on this being the premier show. If you win an award at this show, you know you've done a nice job on your boat, and it will be recognized all over the country to have that award. Then we go into Saturday night, judging's over, everybody's relaxed, and we have a street dance out front. It's a free dance for the whole town, all the exhibitors, and it's just a way to let off steam. And then Sunday starts off, we're going to have a brunch for our friends of the museum. We'll have entertainment, a band here, Skinny Atlas Brass will be here playing. Then we start our grand parade of boats. The whole downtown is blocked off, and people just love it. All these boats get together, head out, and just parade down the river and around the shorefront. Then we do our awards and wind down.
What are some of the different awards that are given out here?
They do everything. Each class of boat, your cruisers, your utilities, your Adirondack guide boats, is broken down into a historic, which is 1919 and earlier, into a antique, which is 1919 up to 1942. Then you go into classic, which comes up to 1968. We don't have anything here that's younger than a 1968 unless it goes into the reproduction class. So the judges are looking for that, and they compare them together, and the awards are given in all the different categories for the oldest, the best, the best reproduction, just about anything you could think of. They keep it very tough, and it has to be exactly. I mean, if the paint is wrong, it wasn't that color paint in 1919, you probably won't win an award.
Sherry, besides all the fabulous boats are here, I see a lot of people walking around that have badges that say volunteer or friends of the museum. Tell me about those people.
Our volunteers are wonderful. We have, for the boat show, there'll be about 125 of them here this weekend. And we definitely couldn't do this weekend without them. We couldn't do the museum without them. They run our admissions desk. And these people come from all over. It might be a summer home up here, and they live somewhere else, or they might live here year-round. It just gives them something to do. They enjoy it, and we just love having them. We also have people with badges, friends of the museum, and they're our major supporters for the museum. And there again, they volunteer. They're just here putting up signs and banners and tents, and everybody just really pitches in to help us. We'll get about 12,000 people through in the next 2 days. The people bring their children out to see what the old boats are like. It preserves them, it preserves history on them. It's not just a hobby, it's a way of life for people up here, and these boats are all used on a daily basis.
Well, we've got remarkable weather, fabulous boats, and we're going to check out some of this entertainment. Sherry, thank you. We are in New York City at the South Street Seaport, speaking now with Paula Mayo, Vice President of Programs. Paula, what's the first building that we're going to take a look at today?
First building we're going into today, Mary, is the A.A. Lowe building. It really was the residence and home and warehouse of a prominent New York China merchant who worked here, and his boats sailed out from there. So let's go inside and take a look.
Okay. Paula, what do we have around us here?
Well, this is an incredible exhibit that's on loan, actually, from the Peabody Essex Museum in Salem, Massachusetts. And what this is tied into our whole immigration theme for this season. These ships are the ships that either brought immigrants or goods and services back and forth across the ocean from Liverpool and into New York Harbor. And the best thing about these is you get some fine examples of real Liverpool artists. These are things you don't get to see all the time. Yeah, they're really incredible. I mean, this is a Robert Solomon. This painting was done around 1845, and it really does exemplify the school of the Liverpool School of Painting is what they call this, because these are the men who sat at the wharf sides and at the dock sides in Liverpool and painted absolutely everything that they saw. I mean, they didn't move from one to the other, they just painted and stayed there. This is one of my favorites because it really shows you something that you don't get to see too often in maritime paintings. This is a Samuel Walters, and I think it was painted around 1848-49. And this painting really depicts something that's incredible. I mean, look at this. This is a fire at sea. And to think that someone could actually get close enough to be able to capture this. We're not talking about photography. This is painting. I mean, this is really incredible work. The detail on this is fascinating because, as you can see, you have the people bailing out on the sides here and coming down. The masts are all at half. This ship is still on fire. And then you have the debris from the wreckage that's floating off and causing a tremendous amount of difficulty for these people who are trying desperately to get to shore. This was the loss of a packet ship which contained all of these people who were actually trying to get from London to the New World.
Yeah, we forget what it's like for those living conditions.
It's difficult, really difficult. But I'll show you more about that when we go to the next exhibit. Okay? Mary, this exhibit is called Immigration in the Age of Sail. And this exhibit was curated by Stephen Jaffe, who's one of our curators on staff here, and utilizes a lot of materials from our own collection, as well as some things that we borrowed from other collections around the city, and individuals. So it's really nice to see this. The spinning wheel that's over here was borrowed from a family that lives up in Rochester. This trunk actually comes from another family that lives in the New Rochelle area in Westchester. We're talking about things that really come from people's hearts, and it really gives them a kick to see it here.
So Paul, there's really an amazing collection here. What is the mission overall of the South Street Seaport?
Well, I think that people view us as kind of an eclectic museum, and that's really not true. Our mission is really to tell the story of the Port of New York. and how it relates to the United States and the rest of the world. And in doing that, that allows us to encompass a large population. I mean, we get to talk about everybody that ever went through the Port of New York, and that seems to be just about everybody. And we're looking for a tremendous input of time and activity, even more than we have had in the past, on our historic ships, which I understand you're going to go see pretty soon.
Yeah. Well, Paula, congratulations on your 30th anniversary. You guys have really enriched the lives of a lot of people. Thanks for showing us around.
Thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it.
When Classic Boat returns, we'll check out boat building, and we'll navigate a wooden tugboat at the South Street Seaport. Later, we'll cruise the Thousand Islands on board the Addiction. Dockside at the South Street Seaport, we attended the christening of a newly built boat.
To feed and supply the city of New York. Amen.
I christen thee, bad penny.
Oh! One more time. 3 dozen. Hey! They're going to wonder why I did.
Later, maritime expert Jack Putnam gave us a tour of the museum's boat building shop located in a converted restaurant. Jack, it's very unusual to see boat building going on in the back of a restaurant. Why are you here? Don't you have a regular shop? Or?
Everything has to be somewhere. And in the city, you build boats where you can. Some people build them in their attics, some people build them in their lofts, some people build them in the street. This is as good a location as we've ever had, and it gives this building, which is essentially vacant, a center of interest for people who come here and expect to see maritime activity.
What are some of the boats that are here that have been built?
Well, the ones that we're standing here right now by are fishing dories that were built in this shop for our schooner, Letty G. Howard. They're 2 of 4 that we built several years ago, and since they're doing a lot of educational programming on board and need some room, 2 of them are being stored here for the time being. These are typical fishing craft of the sort that you would have found on any such vessel in the late 19th and early 20th centuries.
And up ahead here?
Over here we have a very distinct contrast. This is a very modern strip-planked double paddle canoe. It consists of alternating planks of mahogany and cedar and sheathed on the outside with a very fine fiberglass cloth set in an epoxy resin, and then finished on the inside with epoxy. This is just about everything to it except a little spreader that will go across here and a little seat that sits down there, and the rest of it is all hand power with a double paddle.
And you guys did all this here?
This was done by James over here and one of our other colleagues last year. They continue to work on the varnish, because the more varnish, the prettier it gets. This is one of 22, count them, 22 6-hour canoes that we have built here in conjunction with the New York City Schools Construction Authority. It was part of a program, an experiential program for young folks formerly at risk who have taken charge of their lives and are learning skills and completing their education. They're learning construction skills for work in the construction trades with respect to schools. But our take on it was to give them the experience of doing something very unusual, building a boat, doing it together, doing it in a single day. And so what they did was to assemble these boats dry. They took ownership of the project, focused on it, and got it done in a single day. Now we're completing them here. You see one here, another over there, and another outdoors in varying stages of their final assembly.
Although museums like the Seaport fill a definite cultural need, their future is always determined by funding.
Unless corporations, foundations, and individuals can come to the support of museums like this and programs like ours, they're going to remain threatened. We can't depend upon the general public to support something that they can't relate to. and we can't expect them to relate to it unless we have the programs and the artifacts in place. So it's a matter of having to have both the filling and the bread to make the sandwich. We have the stuff, we can get more stuff, we can create programs, we can teach people, we can show people, but we need help to do it.
You're doing very good work. Good luck.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Harbor with Charlie DeRocco, captain of the W.O. Decker, a 1930 wooden tugboat owned by the South Street Seaport Museum. Charlie, tell me about the Decker.
Well, the W.O. Decker was built in 1930 in Newtown Creek, Long Island City for the railroad. And her original name was Russell I. And she was originally fitted with a steam engine. She worked for the railroad from 1930 until around 1947. At which time she was purchased by the Decker family of Staten Island. The Decker family removed the steam engine and put a diesel plant in the boat, and for, I guess 20-25 years she was operated by the Decker family, used in different construction jobs between New York and Norfolk, Virginia. After that she worked for a while up in Long Island Sound hauling coal barges between Stratford, Connecticut and Bridgeport, Connecticut. Around 1977 she was purchased by George Madison, who put the boat back in commercial service here in the New York area. And she worked in New York Harbor, Long Island Sound, and the North River, which is the Hudson River, from 1977 till 1985. During that time, I worked on the boat when she was operated commercially.
What are some of the other spaces on board the boat besides this bridge area?
Well, including the wheelhouse, we have the cabin, which is located aft of here, and there's a small galley sink in there, and a small refrigerator, and a bunk. There's a small marine toilet on board, and the rest is just engine space. From the main deck down, it's fuel tanks and water tanks and engine. And pretty much that's the whole boat.
Tell me about the wheelhouse, especially the steering gear here.
Yeah, the steering gear is, it's hand operated, strictly mechanical. There's no power steering at all, no engine assist or hydraulic assist. When I turn the wheel, it turns some gears which pull and push on some rods that are run along both sides of the house back to the rudder quadrant, which is a quarter of a circle bit of iron that's attached to the top of the rudder stock. So when I turn the wheel one way, the cables pull one way and the rudder's turned that way. So it's all hand and mechanical. There's no power steering at all.
Is it unusual to see a wooden tugboat still operating on the water? How many of these boats are left?
As far as I know, in New York, this is the last one in New York, as far as I know. There are a couple of boats out in Seattle. I think there's one in Seattle, Washington, that takes passengers around Puget Sound. But the WO is, as far as I know in the area, is last of her type. She's built locally, and she still does little work. She tows floats and moves the vessels around for the museum. And we also do charter work out in the harbor here. Education programs, which we've started this year up the Hudson. It's also something we'd like to expand on.
How does it feel to be the captain of this wooden tugboat when you're surrounded by all these glistening skyscrapers?
I don't know, I never gave it much thought. Well, there's a contrast here. I like the I like the contrast between the size of the city, and of course when you're out in the harbor, things are a lot more open, so you don't feel the confinement of the city so much. But I guess I've been around boats for quite a while now, and I've been involved with the W.O. Decker for many years. So I guess right now I'm sort of very used to it. very, very fortunate that I still have the time to run the boat and help maintain her.
Why is it important to maintain boats like this?
Well, I think it's sort of like anything else that we maintain. It's a connection with history and our past. I think part of the enjoyment for me is that it gives me a little bit of an appreciation for the things that people dealt with in the past, which sort of got us to this point. So I like to have a knowledge of that if it's possible.
Well, the Statue of Liberty seems to agree with you. Thanks for showing us around.
Very welcome. Thank you for coming by.
John Warden, here in Clayton, New York, is the owner of Addiction, a 1957 Shepherd, and we're going to go on board and take a closer look. John?
Yep. Want to go ahead?
Thank you.
Here.
John, the Addiction is a very striking looking vessel. Tell me about her.
Well, it's a 1957 Shepherd, 24-foot, twin engine, 135 horsepower apiece, to a total of 270 horsepower. And it does about 43 miles an hour, weighs 5,000 pounds, and they're about 43 hulls built from start to finish, from 54 to 66 when they went out of business.
43 miles an hour seems pretty fast for an old wooden boat. What's the construction? It must be pretty durable.
It's crane construction, mahogany planked, and they are pretty solid boat. They're very strongly made because they were built for rough water. They were built for the Canadian lakes up north, and they were fairly rough, so they had to stay together. They were built for people to go to the cottages and come back, and sometimes you have to go when it's rough and come back when it's rough. So that's one of the primary why they were built.
You get really high freeboard. Is that all part of that?
That's all part of it, because some of the lakes up in Canada, the one big one, Lake Simcoe, can blow up to 15 feet in a storm. So if you're coming home in a storm, you want to be safe.
That always helps. Did the Addiction always look like this? What was she like when you bought her?
No, it was in not bad shape when we bought it, but it had been changed over the years from original. So we had to bring it all back to original and restore the finish and reframe the bottom and the back deck. And it took a period of about 7 years from start to finish.
Tell me more about the engine. You mentioned it goes pretty fast in the water.
Well, the engines are Chrysler Crowns M47S's, and they are 135 horsepower apiece, so a total of 270 horse. And that's quite a bit of horsepower for a boat of this vintage. There was some made with higher horsepower, but this one, was the advertised speed of this boat was 43.
With all of the unique hardware on board the Shepherd, and they're very rare boats, is it difficult to find replacement parts?
It can be. Some of the hardware is getting very scarce. We have somebody in Canada now that's remanufacturing the old hardware, and it's getting easier and easier to find some of the parts. There are still some parts that are extremely hard to find. Yeah.
We saw you guys out on the water the other day during a river cruise. You looked like you were having a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had a ball. We went down to the Bolt's Boathouse, and we were the whole day on the water with a bunch of other boats, and we had a great day. Yeah.
You have spent a lot of time in restoration and repairing of the Addiction. What is it about a classic wooden boat like this that makes it worth all that trouble?
Oh, it's just a love of old boats, and I grew up with them as a kid, So I went away from it for a few years during my childhood or teenage years, but then we got back into it 8 or 10 years ago, and it's just a good hobby. You meet a lot of nice people like yourself, and we have a lot of fun.
All right, well, we certainly had fun coming on board. Good luck here at the show with the judging, and we'll talk to you later.
Okay, thank you.
Well, that's all for this week's Journey on Classic Boat. We'll see you next time.